Hi, everyone. Hope you all can hear me now. I think we're going to get started in just a minute. I want to make sure that Muthoni is in as a panelist. I know we had quite a few people sign up today. I'm really excited about the turnout for this. This is our, I'm just going to talk for a minute while we make sure we get Muthoni in here. This is our, I am Amy Pritchard, by the way. My name should be up on there, and I definitely recognize a few names. I am the founder of Gain Power, which is a new platform built for the democratic and progressive political community. We are a new, here comes Muthoni, yay. We are a bit of a new reimagined extension of Democratic Gain, which is an organization I founded about 17 years ago. But we rebranded and we relaunched, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. Most of you should have gotten here from one of our emails, from one of our socials or our site. So hopefully you know a little bit about it, and many of you have actually signed up and registered on the site. We definitely have one of the biggest job boards in the democratic and progressive politics. And we've done a couple of career fairs, virtual career fairs this year that have brought, actually each one, first one I think had over 1,000, and then we actually capped the second one. I think we had about 500 or 600 people on that, and dozens of employers. And one of the things that was obvious from those two career fairs was that we were not able to let everyone kind of get into some of the more popular with some of the more popular employers and people. So we thought we would start this career session to make sure that you could hear from some of the folks. Oops, I see your note, Muthoni, okay. That you could hear from some of the more popular organizations and some of the leaders in our democratic and progressive movement. Muthoni, please do turn your video on. I think you're in as a panelist right now. I am super excited to welcome Muthoni Wambu Kraal to this presentation. She's working on getting her video going here. While she's getting herself situated, I'll just give you a little bit of background. You'll hear a lot more from her about her background and experience, and probably most importantly about her current work. But Muthoni is someone that I've known for over 22 years now. We met each other when we both worked at the DCCC over 20 years ago now. And she has stayed working in democratic and progressive politics since then, working as a consultant, working for Emily's List, again, working for the DCCC, working for many members of Congress, doing fundraising, holding all sorts of jobs. And she is currently now the National Political and Organizing Director of the Democratic National Committee. So she's going to talk to you today. Oh, she's saying, apparently I need to give her permission, which she was, bear with us here. This is so weird because she was invited in as a panelist. Oh, there she is. Yay.
Hello.
Awesome. Yay. This is like so much fun for me, by the way. I'm so excited about this, actually. I'm sort of ridiculously excited about this. So she is the, as I started to say, you see I'm more animated just seeing your face. She is the National Political and Organizing Director at the DNC, which is, I can say from a little bit of personal experience, an amazing job. It's a job that I myself actually held just over 16 years ago, which was at a similar, well, there's nothing like this time, that's for sure, but was at a time when we were having a Republican incumbent president and heading into a nomination process. So I have some, what I would describe as sympathy and empathy for the challenges of this job. But I honestly can't even imagine in this environment and this year, which is so unusual for all of us, what it's like. But I'm so excited that you're here, Muthoni. I'm so excited that you're here to talk to. We've already got 91 people. We actually had a couple hundred sign up. Obviously, people are super interested in hearing from you, far more interested in hearing from you than me. So what I think would probably just be most helpful is for you to introduce yourself maybe a little more detailed than I just did. Talk a little bit about your current job, and I suspect we're gonna get a lot of questions. I know I got a few ahead of time and I have a few prepared myself. So yay, you're here. Happy to see you. Thanks for doing this.
Absolutely, Amy. And it's so good to see you too, my friend. We are not, I think, that far apart physically, but that's what makes it even harder, living in the same neighborhood and still not getting to see you in person. Hey, everybody, my name is Muthoni Wambu Kraal, and I am the National Political and Organizing Director at the DNC, and proud to be one of, there's like I think it's a smaller sisterhood of women who have held the political director job at the DNC. And so I think that for a lot of us, I think of us as pretty hardy broads who have held those roles. And it has been, frankly, an honor, just as you've just said, Amy, to hold this job at a time where the responsibility is so big. Not only for the results of the helping to ensure that we have safe and accessible elections, but everything leading up to this point. Being a part of this organization when we had, such a historic and diverse and large field of candidates, the largest in our history, and coming after a previous election cycle where, frankly, the party suffered a huge blow to its brand, a huge blow to the trust in the institution, and a lot of rebuilding had to be done when Chairman Perez stepped into that role on day one. I was not actually there until this past spring. I came to the DNC last April. And I got to be honest, I didn't know what to expect. I laugh a lot, Amy, because I think about the fact that during my interview, I shared that I worked at the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. And yes, these two committees share a building. And yes, we are one floor apart, but we are worlds apart in terms of the scope and responsibilities and area that you cover. Truly working at the party, you are working with all of the people, and it is very different than working in the House side of politics. And so, which by the way, I thought was, rather wild. I mean, I think our Senate people sort of have the most sort of tidy world, and it just grows out from there. And when you get to the DNC, it is all our people. It is grassroots. It is everything. It's our party. And having been a house side girl, just like you, Amy, or woman even then, I love this part. I love the people. This is where some of the greatest diversity inside of the Democratic Party exists. Starting with our members inside of the DNC and growing all the way out to all of our grassroots supporters and our candidates and all of the places and spaces where the party helps to try and make a difference. The way I kind of got started in this work is, I like to sort of say, was through political osmosis in my mama's belly. And that is because I am the daughter of two very active educators. I also was born on the south side of Chicago in the 70s, and that was a real activist time for those who literally feel like that is so long ago and have no concept of what that means. I'm just going to paint the picture that it was an activist time. I grew up in a household that believed that to whom much is given, much also is required. And my parents were both educators. And, even having grown up though, Amy, I would say I grew up around a lot of political information. My father's from Kenya. I think, when you're growing up in a household where someone is also not from the United States originally, you look at the world differently. And while I was born on the South Side, we also moved to New York City when I was 5. And so again, I sort of had this explosion in terms of my world, because during my time of growing up in Chicago, it was a pretty segregated place. And then moving to New York, to where I was, it was just a very different environment around me. And I think that meant a lot for preparing me to be in this work. I grew up around so many different journeys, roads, stories, and people that it sort of gave me the language of a lot of our communities. And it sure as heck gave me a lot of exposure. It grew a lot of love and respect inside of me. And it made me, I think, really fit for a job that would eventually have me around people, which, by the way, my uncle has given me some of the best advice I ever had working in politics. Baby, you better have a radical love of people, or you just want to kill them all. So, I got a radical love of people. And I say that not as an extrovert, I mean that as a value set. And so serving in this way means a lot to me, and people trusting. And really, I mean, we are literally we hold a lot of responsibility in this work. And we are messengers, we are asking people to actually literally physically before times open up their doors and talk to us. We are representing sometimes candidates in campaigns that we may have just gotten on a week ago. And you got to go and start talking about why folks should invest their time or their vote in this person. So, I love and was very fortunate to have that as my foundation. What it did not prepare me for, though, Amy, was some of the realities of our industry. And one was I didn't even realize there was an industry. And I grew up, as I said, around a lot of exposure, and I still had no idea about DC's sort of like everything that sort of goes into how we get people elected, and how many jobs are out there. I mean, how many of us have ever sat in a career, with your advisor or in some sort of career environment before this one, but back when you're in high school, where someone is literally helping you to think about future careers? When is it that anyone talks about being a pollster? When is it that anybody explains to you about being a research director? When does anyone ever even talk about campaigns as a career? So and that education gap, I think, is one that goes back to sort of the culture where a lot of our campaigns began, and that this was really a kind of a friends and family business for a long time. And, GAIN and other organizations that have been working and evolving and really pushing our industry, formally acknowledging this as an industry and pushing it to be a place that is more accessible, more known, and where more people can succeed, not by accident, because as I did, I tripped into my first job at the DCCC. I didn't even know what that was until I was working in that building. And I went to college in Washington, D.C., Howard University, shout out for any Bisons out there. So, and even with that proximity to the Hill, I had no idea, about all of the different aspects of political world and electoral side work. So I have held a number of jobs, as Amy has said, in my career because most of it has been in campaigns. And I've stayed in this because, after that first job that you and I worked, Amy, when we were both at the D-Trip, it wasn't your first job, but it was mine. I realized two things there. One, if I didn't know how much it took and how many different jobs there are just to get someone elected to one lousy congressional seat, I knew that there were a lot of folks out there that had no idea. And I understood that this was why so many people who I cared about at the seat of power, to see the diversity in our halls of power, really weren't getting there. So much of this work is a mystery to a lot of people, both from the how you get elected side to the how you work on this in this work side. And secondly, it was seeing how many people didn't feel that they could afford to work in this industry. And that is something that I know that you have been working passionately around, and I have felt the same way. I have worked in a number of ways. I've worked on the fundraising side of things because part of that sort of political education gap I talked about, the first thing I noticed was that the world of campaigns and how candidates were winning, particularly in the larger the race and the more voters they needed to be able to communicate to, how many folks did not realize the role of money now in their campaigns and how much of it was going to make a difference in their competitive edge. And, this was before we got to grassroots and small dollars. Thank you for the internet. But when I was working with you at the DCCC, we didn't have that. So it was a lot of hand over fist, trying to reach people and raising money for candidates who didn't recognize how important that was going to be. Now we have so many other ways for people to engage. And I left after my 2 cycles there, opened my own firm with another Black woman, and decided to really focus on women and people of color to really help them to understand further and advise them around their politics. We did that for about 5 years, and then I went to the AFL-CIO. I've worked in the world of labor. And when I left there, I worked for a shy, quiet guy by the name of Joe Biden. So, and that was in the '07 campaign as his deputy political director. I've worked for a U.S. Senate race right after that because Iowa happened. And a lot of people don't remember that, that he's been through this before and it was rough. I was there when we went through that fight, that cycle, and then ended up working for a woman named Kay Hagan and helped her become the U.S. Senator from North Carolina. So, and when I left that job, and this is the last one I'll say so that I'm not sort of going on, but I ended up at the job where I would be for these last 10 years before I came to the DNC, and that was at Emily's List, working for the largest political action committee that helps women to get elected, and really chose to dig in at that point, Amy, on kind of leaving the federal stuff, because I really wanted to work at the nexus of where candidates begin oftentimes to help continue to impact that diversity that we talked about at the beginning. And so worked on the state and local side for almost a decade.
So it's interesting, you touched on this a couple times about the fact that this feels like sort of like a secret society in so many ways. And a big part of our goal is to demystify it and democratize it, and certainly to diversify it. That is, I think we need so many more and different people in this business, but so many people who do try to get in find roadblocks, find barriers, find gatekeepers, so is there advice you want to, there's a couple specific questions I'll call out from the chat here, but yeah. I know that so many people, like when we had our career fair, for example, they're coming from all walks of life, not just other political experiences. So general advice to people trying to kind of break into our world, whether you're fresh out of college or maybe this is a second or third career for you.
Absolutely. And I'm here for all of it. When I talk about diversity, I absolutely come at this first and foremost from a life walk perspective. And that is why I think it's very important that people not be afraid to career switch. It doesn't make it easy though, because oftentimes what it means is you are going potentially into jobs that are more junior than the ones that you have left in terms of position. And that's a choice that sometimes you just make. I've done it before. I've taken steps back in salary. I've done things where it was more about the skill opportunity or the, for any variety of reasons. I'll tell you what did not usually make my decisions, and that was money. And I had to get paid. that was not even for internships. I was absolutely somebody who, I mean, if it was an internship that didn't pay, I didn't even look at it. I just like blocked those out and only highlighted the ones that had a salary. So, which is why we've, worked really hard to get paid internships happening. And, there's so much that is evolving thanks to so many of us who have been staffers who have, faced the pinch and also seen what that does to our industry, who that closes out when we're not trying to help equal the playing ground more on the financial front. And, when you are looking at coming into this work, being as open-minded as you possibly can be is literally the best way to begin. There is a risk thing that you're going to have to kind of talk yourself into here. And this is me giving you just straight talk, because you are going to go off of sort of your best, gut feeling and interviews and whatnot. But hey, you may be moving 3 states over for someone who you've literally met on Zoom. So, and you've had 2 conversations and and you're very involved oftentimes in your candidates' lives, often depending on the size of the campaign. And, the biggest place where I think that you get the most exposure is when you go for the state and local campaign work. A lot of times people are going to run to the big campaigns and, hey, we still need to hire people, even on the presidential. And so I will just go ahead with my first plug of the night and tell people to go to the DNC website and look for our job bank, for our talent bank. It is not a dark hole where resumes go to die. It is actually a place where we do pull people, and we are moving them pretty constantly to our state party partners, which is the way that people often will get hired once you are at this level of scaling up on a presidential campaign. And so, but a presidential campaign is one of these unique moments where you get to come in and potentially be an organizer on the ground. When we are not in that time, or if you don't get one of those jobs, there are so many other candidates that are running right now. And as you have seen, when we're in a movement time, it is the best time for there to be an explosion of folks who decide to also run for office. And we have so many more organizations now in our industry that are encouraging more people to run for office. And therefore they are. And it turns out recruitment is actually very key. And it has helped, and it's meant that we've had an explosion of candidates. We need an explosion of staff. But you will perhaps have to be willing to sort of change your mindset about where you thought you were going to go and exactly what that job was going to be. So I saw that there was a question, for instance, from, I hope it's pronounced Katie, C-A-T-Y. And she's asking about how necessary communications jobs are in congressional campaigns. They are pretty critical. However, if you are just getting started, coming out of school and looking to go into comms, they may or may not, particularly on hotly competitive congressional races, they may be looking for people who have had a few more, a couple of cycles of experience in doing that. And so again, as you all are looking at where are some of your best opportunities to get your foot in the door, it may not directly be as a communications director only, Katie. It may be going on a smaller race where you are both an organizer and somebody who can come in with writing skills, and they may not be able to afford a communications person as a staff position, but you are able to say, I bring my organizing skills and I can help with a lot of the writing and the this and the that. Everybody needs good writers. So that is always a skill set that you will take with you, and it will make you precious. But it may take a little while to sort of cut up into the comms director's jobs. There are a lot of other roles in between time, though, where you can continue to polish up your skills.
I'm going to call, because I'm not sure you're seeing the Q&A, so I'm going to read a couple. There's Sylvia, which I think asked a really good one. It's as much about sort of post-election, but so what's the path to being employed after an election cycle? I think it may hinder a number of marginalized community members from staying and seeing politics as a career.
Yeah, there are so many jobs, as I just said, which I think people forget. And so I think that is really important to remember, that it doesn't need to be, that you are widget maker number 34 for the next 50 years. And there's, by the way, there are a lot of us that were put through school by parents who were widget maker 34. So, but I am saying to you that I think that saying that you're going to have a career in politics or a career in electoral and campaigns can often almost sound corrosive and a part of the problem in the system that people think, when in fact I am like my best self now. I have been through so many campaigns, and so much of what I have learned, as I said, this for me is like a very kismet moment to have been able to roll all of that into taking this role at the DNC now, at a time where a very wide network is needed. And so having worked in so many regions of the country, and having worked at the state and local level, where so many of my candidates who began as local electeds and have continued to move up, some of them are now governors, and I have known them since when, and was that lone person at their kitchen table, talking them into running for their first elected office. Some of them are attorney generals, and the list goes on. And so in having that, and then in having those relationships to bring to bear inside of our party at a time where we need cohesiveness, we need to work with so many of our other sister committees, and we need to have a line of communication through, from our chair to our governors, to our mayors, to our congressional members, our senators, and more. So that is what I would say about making this a career. Remember that there is a lot of places and spaces for you to move around. And if you decide that at a certain point in time, moving from the electoral to the governing side is something that feels like a calling instead, that is yet an entire, other side of options. So that is what I would say. But, not enough of us stay on the campaign side, Amy. And we lose women. We lose women a lot. It is a hard life. And we lose a lot of our sisters. There are so few of us that we still look to the left and the right and still see women our age in this business. And I am, 45, y'all, and I have a 7-year-old. And as I was thinking about whether that was going to be a time when I had my kid, whether that was going to be a time I switched, I actually decided to double down on it, because I thought to myself, if this industry feels hostile or impossible for me as a mother, who better to be a voice then for parents inside of this work? So many of my friends are adopting kids or choosing to become single parents even. So I'm sitting here with some support. I darn sure don't want someone to not still be able to do this work. And we're recruiting single parents to run for office, but they can't have anybody working for them who has that same story and life walk. No. So, we have a lot of work to do as we're developing, as we're evolving as a country, as you think about who's going to be advising people on laws and direction. And we need that in terms of who these advisors are in the worker bees. We all need to be able to work and thrive in this industry. And that is why I've decided to stay in it, in addition to the fact that I do still love it.
I feel you. I love it every day, and I consider it such a privilege to do this work, to actually get paid to do work that I'm passionate about every day. There's one question, well, there's a few I definitely want to make sure I call out, but one I really like, because I know when I had your job, people would ask me this often. So it was Katie writes, can you describe the job of a political staffer? I understand comms, financial, and fundraising, but political feels so vague. Does the path to a political career run through campaigns? Like, what do you really do?
Yeah, I know. Well,
And obviously, what do you do today? I mean, there's also the context of this crazy pandemic that we're in, which makes it particularly unique, I suspect. But
so a lot of what I do is convening. I mean, in my role at the DNC, and political directors look different depending on where you are. You play a different role for your organization. It is usually an external facing role. It is usually a role where you are the chief convener of people around, around whatever that sort of ecosystem is. And where your job is to help keep people informed, it's to help coalition build, it's to help inform decisions internal to your organization. A lot of that is my job. And it is to also kind of be at the nexus of a lot of your teams. And so I work really closely. It's a very sort of cross-team role, which means that you have to have really strong communication skills. You have to be willing to work truly across teams. And there is, and the larger the organization, the more you end up doing a lot of that. But it's fantastic because it means that you get to see a lot of the different inner workings of your organization. And you get to bring a lot of those pieces together in ways that make sense for your partners or for particular projects. And again, for that collaboration that you may need. So at the DNC, that also includes working with a lot of our sister committees. It includes working with a lot of our progressive organizations externally and making sure that they know what the Democratic Party is doing and feel updated on our work, keeping them updated on the elections and many of the, not just the results, but even beforehand, making sure people have that information, because then they use that to go and inform their members and their activists. And so a lot of what the party is we, along with being organizers, we are also an important messenger. And we also are an important amplifying space for a lot of our candidates and campaigns. We help make a lot of resource decisions. Sorry, I meant to say that part. That part's important.
Yeah, well, and you also, I mean, this sort of is inferred, but it's also flagging because it's also part of your title, the organizing, but specifically, constituencies and different groups. There's sort of like the DC groups, but there's also like voting groups, right? And I think that's, to me anyway, that's when I think about the job. Those are very sort of distinct, different worlds.
Absolutely. And so I do manage a team of about 20 people who are a part of our constituency team. And these are our lead organizers who are working out in the States, not physically, obviously right now, but they are building these large networks so that we have connectivity and relationships and eyes and ears on the ground. They work very closely with our DNC members, which people often forget that as a party, we are a membership organization. And a huge part of how our organizing gets done is our members run themselves. They are elected. And so they are top organizers in their own right who help to inform our work and our perspective.
I'm going to combine two questions that I'm seeing here. One is just about how do you sort of switch from maybe comms to political, and someone else asked very specifically, which I love this question because not enough people ask, how do you get into fundraising? Since you've obviously done so much of it, I thought you would like that question too.
Okay, so I feel like maybe because I'm hearing the how did you get into the political, again, it's like this, feels like this mystery. So let me see if I can get there. by starting with fundraising, because I like to make sure that folks understand that a lot of the essence of fundraising is you're building a network, and you're building a network of supporters. And for me, having done that over the years, it meant that having candidates and campaigns that I worked for in various states, that a lot of those networks then became my networks too. And we really got to know each other. Fundraising has often, because it's been, well, because we need campaign finance reform, let's be clear. And I have, consistently said that. But until that time, and until I could get more people, elected to help us get to that reform place, which I think we're very close to, we needed to make sure that we had the resources to pay people. And we had to make sure we had the resources to have all that we need around us for the organizing, talking to voters. All of those things require us to spend money the way that we are currently structured as a country. And so what I did as a fundraiser was create a lot of relationships and really try to make sure that our style in my firm was less transactional than, oftentimes transactional is there's a sort of style and approach to things, and making sure that folks, really felt like they were kept in as a part of our community. Because I see, and I said this often, that people forget that money is a form of civic engagement too. I think that's an easier sell, and it's easier for folks to see that now when you can give $3 online. But that is how a political action committee like Emily's List got started. People would put their $3 little Emily's into the mail and send them to help get, a U.S. senator elected, check by check by check. People remember back when the envelopes would come, and it was some of the biggest boosts and shot in the arm they had as a candidate, feeling that investment in them from women all over the country for a lot of these folks. So that was my foundation for getting into the political, was first starting with, on the fundraising side of things, getting to know people, working with my candidates, building lists, creating relationships. A lot of what you do is making sure people feel updated. So that's a lot of what you bring into a political director's job as well, is you are doing a lot of external communications and updates. And we did the same thing as fundraisers, so people would stay engaged. And then how did I get into the fundraising itself was quite accidental. I mean, my job at the DCCC was very accidental, Amy. You may not remember this, but I interviewed to be our executive director, Matt Engel, to be his assistant at the time, which, by the way, would have been the worst thing ever. It would have cut my career short. I should be no one's assistant. I possess none of the excellent skill sets to do that job. And ended up instead, well, I was someone's assistant, but definitely should not have been the assistant to the executive director. That was very high demand. But instead, I ended up, because I was the second runner-up for that job, and then they told me that the old person wanted her job back. And they said, but we have this thing down the hall where we pay people on an hourly basis to help chase RSVPs. And they had barely finished the sentence. I was already down the hall signing myself up. And one night, a huge box of invitations arrived late. They were supposed to have arrived the day prior or something. And the finance team was so frustrated, and they just left in a huff. I called my best friend and I said, girl, I will split my money, my little hourly thing with you. Will you come over here and help me stuff these invitations? Because I just saw a job that needed to get done, and I felt badly that people were so frustrated. And so she came, and we stuffed these invitations, sealed them, stamped them, and had them in the box in front of the finance director's door the next day. And apparently there was a big hullabaloo about it. And the guy who was over the, our hourly check-in, our hourly work, looked at his clipboard and saw that we had checked out at 2 a.m. and realized it was me. And that is when Daryl Thompson, my first boss in politics, ended up saying, who is that go-getter? I want her on my team. And that's how I got my first job, And it happened to be in the political department. It could have been in the basement. I did not care. I was hungry. I'd gotten advice that in order to do, a particular type of job that I wanted to do in DC at the time, I thought I wanted to do public relations work. And most of the firms here are government relations. And they said, have you worked on the Hill? I said, I have not. And the woman said, you need to go work on the Hill. I took her word as like my mission. And so, as I said, I would have taken any job they were giving me at that time. And believe me, this came after me faxing a lot of resumes to offices very cutely that I'm sure never got read. So, yeah.
That's a great story. I think, I love that you just said faxing too, because of course that's what we do. But you also flagged that the applications are not internet black holes at the DNC. But that doesn't mean there isn't more you can do. And there's probably 2 or 3 questions here that I'm kind of merging together where they say, absolutely, how do you stand out? How do you do beyond filling out an application online? What else can you do to stand out? And any advice, especially today where we're all stuck at home, anything that folks on this call can do to stand out beyond just hitting submit on a form?
Yeah, the thing that I always say, and it was advice that my mom gave me when I went to college, and she said, baby, today your career begins. And I think that she said that so that I would remember to have some act right and remember that folks are like, that these people that I'm around, this is not a temporary thing. That college is really it really is kind of the beginning of folks sort of following you, thinking about you from a professional perspective. It's your major, it's your thing. And so you are, you have a lot of opportunities even in volunteerism to stand out. And if you are at home right now, and I know that, for instance, in the Biden campaign, a lot of the people who more recently got hired over even into some of their teams, they started out as super volunteers. They had entire whole full-time jobs. I don't know how they were doing that, but they were doing it, which is, sort of why it's important, that when you do that, do it for something that really kind of really lights a fire under you, because that will make that kind of extra sacrifice really feel worth it. There are also, there's a lot of hiring that is happening, but it is not guaranteed that your resume will meet that particular need at that time. And that is the reality that makes job hunting just tough. There is an armor you just got to put on, and that you have to kind of keep going at this. When you hear me say that, I kept faxing those resumes into those offices, and I just would hunt down and go down whatever road I had to go down, and whatever lead that someone gave me to do it, which brings me to other people. So this is still a really, there is still a very heavy sort of network aspect to a lot of this work. And I just want to keep it real and keep it straight here. And therefore, even my job at the D-Trip, that interview, I got it because Renita, you remember Renita?
I do.
Who was working there. Renita and I interned together at a social justice public relations firm together. And so during that time, we got to know each other. And then she would call me and was like, oh, hey, girl, I know you're looking. So when I say people matter, somebody else needs to know you are job hunting. And you need to definitely look out, and I'm sure a lot of you are, and I've seen a lot of people get really creative about their LinkedIn. Just know I'm not very responsive on LinkedIn because the Russian bots are also there and people looking to hack you. So I just don't do a lot on LinkedIn, I'm sorry. But there are people who actively do engage on that. Being a part of networks like GAIN, starting to join some of these, I saw that you had a lot of battleground people on this call, Amy, because I looked at your poll. There are battleground Facebook groups for Joe Biden. And then for everybody who's everywhere else, there are women for Joe Biden. I'm about to help launch the African diaspora for Joe Biden.
I'm going to follow up with you on that specifically. That's an offline conversation.
Okay.
But I'm glad you said that. I've got some African diaspora activists who are dying to do something.
Yeah, so there's just there are so many volunteer opportunities. And then I'm going to go back to what I said before. Start looking at state and local. There are so many people that are running for state and local office. And when you look at organizations like the Democratic Legislative Campaign Committee or the Democratic Municipal Officials, or we even have Democratic County officials. There are lots of networks out there where those folks are hiring, and they may often come to the DNC's job bank to look for people as well. So that's why I say, definitely put your stuff into these various job banks, to bigger organizations like Emily's List, et cetera. And particularly because in the fall, that's when people just start having to scale, scale, and they are looking and doing much more of a hiring spree.
So, okay, there's so many questions and I'm mindful of time because I told you only 45 and we're up against, so I know you're gonna have to jump to it. One question I really want to flag, Maria Pantolino, she actually emailed me in advance of this, so I want to make sure I ask her question. And by the way, I also want to give her a plug because she's built a really cool website herself. She's a voice talent. So she's got a very specific niche. She built a website, Blue Wave, I hope I'm saying it right. I will send it to you. She tried to get a bunch of voice talents, people who will do, whether they're radio or TV, etc. She did it very specifically mission driven, and it's a super cool website. But her question is, how do people like her who are freelancers, they're not looking for jobs per se, but they're looking to crack in very specific, I mean, hers is a super niche, but it could be something else, could be a graphic designer, someone who's maybe not looking for a job, but how do you break in if you're a consultant or a freelancer? How do you deal with that?
Yeah. So this part is this one is harder, and it's because as I said before, this is a heavily networked industry, and because so many, I mean, there is a skill to the work, and when people are looking for connecting folks to roles, it's not just about the can you write, have you ever written a press release, but it is there's a reason why folks are looking to see like what particular type of experience you've had. They are often trying to match that with like the needs of a particular campaign or organization, and they're looking at their teams and they're saying like, what do we need here? Do I need someone who has been in these kinds of races before? Do I need someone who particularly understands the needs of a Senate race or a governor's race? Do I need someone who particularly has, been on running a campaign in a conservative district? Do I need someone who, has worked with a Black woman candidate before? Do I need someone who is, and so just remember that. That's why I said, like the flexibility that you are willing to push yourself towards will be your greatest asset in this business, because there is a job for you out there. Guarantee it. Just like there's love out there for you. But I am telling you, there is a job out there for you. It will require you to be very open-minded. It may require you to physically move, not right now, but somewhere down the line. It may require you to move several times. I have, at one point, I think I had counted having moved 17 times over, since my time coming to Howard. And so, and for me, that was okay. That was okay. It was worth it. It was a part of, but it also is a part of the skill set I bring. And so if that has not been inside of your skill building, then it may get harder to find people to see you as a match for the particular job. So I will say this to you though, you know what I'm not looking for in resumes usually? Second and third degrees. I'm not here to lambast anybody's education, but I'm just telling you that on my side of this work, not on the like policy and governing side, but on my side of this work, what I am looking to see is, have you organized, or if this is like an entry-level organizing moment, great. What other things do you bring with you? For She Who Writes, that's fantastic, you know, or for this person who is really good on social or really good around digital. You know, we are looking oftentimes at resumes for a skill set that I think is actually really achievable for people, because you can start and then build those things up. And it doesn't require you to have gone to law school. It does not require you to have some master's in politics, but it does require an open mind.
There is another question that relates actually specifically to like doing digital on campaign and other transitioning, but you know, what is digital? What kind of work is digital there? I feel like it's such a generic word too, right? So I know it's a lot of different things.
Yeah. So the digital work, and you feel free to jump in here too, Amy, because you do this, but like, shouldn't you be answering this question?
Yes, you're here, my dear.
Yeah. So it's not a role I have worked in before, but it is ever more important in our campaigns. And oftentimes now it is seen like our field organizations are organizing very much the online components of this and are just as important as the offline components of talking to potential voters, of warming up the relationships online around your candidate, of telling your story, and of starting to build support. And a lot of that is done via various channels. Some of it are ads, some of it is via just regular social engagement. Some of it is because you have a very targeted campaign that you have put together to get a very specific message out, or you use it to sort of augment the physical side of your organizing as well. And so, Amy, you can probably expand on that.
I mean, it's a longer question if they're looking to do, you know, I mean, I think there's stuff on the data side of digital, there's stuff on the creative side of, you know, whether that's videography or graphic or meme development. But it's also, I mean, you say you're not a digital, I just want to keep this focus more on you. You know, I think of you as just an amazing storyteller. And you use your social platforms to engage with your friends, but you do it in a way that is amplifying bigger things. And I say that because I think you're a wonderful example of what I think everyone should do, right? Like we have this opportunity. I don't care whether you're sitting in a battleground state, but especially if you are, the number of people that you touch, right? Like just continually telling how campaigns and stuff affect your lives. All of us can do that. And I think, that, I mean, to me, that's digital because it's content, it's creation, it's engaging on the socials. Gosh. I'm so mindful of your time, and there's so many questions.
And I saw one from James that I thought was really good, James Gravitt, about how does taking a more junior role after being in more senior leadership impact your chances of moving up. So I think it just depends on what the job is, right? So coming off of my Senate race and going over to Emily's list, it was, I mean, they told me at the time, hey, you know, pay is going to be a little less, and you know, but and I think a lot of people thought that me leaving the federal world, Amy, was somehow a step down, and that is sort of kind of how things used to be seen anyway in DC, because it is such a federally focused space, right? It is the seat of federal government, and I did not see it that way at all. It was a new chapter, a return to a real passion space for me. And it was taking a step back when I heard about this job. And I hadn't even thought about it at the time. I just knew that I was searching for something. And the minute I was told about this, and the way they presented it was like, yeah, you probably wouldn't want this, but you know, we do have this one thing. And I was like, wait, slow down, back up, go back to that reel. Tell me more about that. And I was like, state and local. You mean where it all begins? Like where I could go and train and recruit more diverse people to run for office? Yes, please. I absolutely want this job. And guess what? I almost didn't get it. They were going to hire someone else because she had managed a campaign and I had not managed a race. I'd been a political director. I'd served, to your question, James, about, I mean, I served in a senior level role, but I almost lost out to someone. And it turned out for them, though, they ended up moving her into a different role and they hired me, that I was the better fit because, frankly, there weren't a lot of resources in state and local. And so much of what you had to do was build a lot of relationships, was be creative. You have to be pretty scrappy, and help people figure out how to build their people networks and think about money creatively and their fundraising in ways that I was really excited to dig in to do. And again, even when I started there, online fundraising had sort of just kind of like, you know, I mean, we'd had Act Blue had really like made its like mark in my Senate race. But people were just kind of getting there, right? And this was after Obama, and it was like, okay, small dollar fundraising. Even though it was during the Howard Dean days that we really got our small dollars going. But all of that to say, I think you want to look at the opportunity. I really have tried to follow in my sort of in my gut steering. Is the opportunity great? Is it worth me kind of taking a couple of dollars back? Is the person I'm working for somebody who's going to help me grow? Are they going to invest in me? Is the candidate I'm working for, is that someone I just feel really inspired to wake up every day and to like for that day to not end until the next day? So those things, and by the way, those three things usually never live together at the same time. It was usually a different phase of decision making. And then as I, started to have this family, that started to become a consideration, although my husband would say that obviously it wasn't, because I am on this job 24/7.
It's a 24/7 job. It is absolutely a 24/7 job. It's more than that if there were more hours in the day.
Yeah.
My gosh, there's so many good questions. I want to answer them all. There's definitely feels like a lot of sort of transitioning questions. There's a few about just like life after a campaign. How do you do it? Or how do you move from one job to another, one track to another? I see another one asking about moving from state and local to an organization like the DNC or Emily's List. I mean, everyone seems to be talking about kind of transitioning. Any kind of broad advice? You've given some great advice already. I mean, and there's certain things you've touched on that I give all the time. So we are simpatico.
Love it. Yes, we've always been. I wanted to be Amy, by the way, during that first job at the DCCC. She was literally like my lady hero in that workspace. And she drove my car that I always wanted, the Jeep Wrangler. I thought it was like the ultimate badass sign. Transitions are, there's, again, I just think like there's this thing inside of you as you're working on campaigns that makes you more open-minded. And I don't know that there was any part of me at the beginning of my career that would have seen where I was today. And I certainly did not see myself. I think I would have thought that I was too, I think I would have maybe thought I was too old to come and take this job, for a moment there, to be honest with you. And it's not that it's a younger person's role per se. There's no age attached to it whatsoever. I just was like, what am I bringing to bear in this, And I really wanted to like make sure that it was going to meet the moment. And I definitely see even now, something that is interesting is the difference between age between you and your workforce, right? And I have a pretty intergenerational team, which is cool. And that part is, I think we get to see the importance of that diversity as well inside of our team makeup. And that has also helped our team, I think, to really have this amazing balance and sort of ability to be very agile, because we just have a really broad set of good skills that complement. And that includes, again, kind of our age diversity, which is really important there. But in transitions, I just think you start thinking about that and start preparing, start looking, start kind of letting your feelers help you think through what you want to be doing next, because you can start to do things before then. Going back to that idea around your networking and the spaces that you're showing up and being really intentional about your time, which, you know, for those of us who manage candidates, we tell them that their most important resource is their time. I feel that way about you all, and making sure that you are, you know, set a couple goals. I usually work in threes, and I've usually said, what are the three things, the three directions that I could go in that would make me feel like very content, and I could do any one of these three. And that way it didn't get me too stuck in one particular, searching only for one job, you know, or searching only in one direction for a job, you know, or only job searching. I mean, I know a lot of you oftentimes still keep school as like a thing that's an option as well, although I continue to say less learning, more earning.
It's
Just
true. I
kidding.
have to say, because a few different people, and I just want to sort of add to, a few different people have referenced, it's really interesting. In our space, in our political space, to be blunt, people don't value education. They value experience a heck of a lot more. There are other industries. I do some work in international development, and I don't have a master's, and people, like, there's jobs I just can't get because I don't have that master's, and people look down upon me because I don't have the master's. So other places that matters a whole lot more. In our world, we're like, what were you doing in school? Why weren't you working?
Yeah, it costs you time, frankly. And so then you're like, oh, I'm coming out of graduate school, and now I've got to work with, like, you know, people who are 4 years younger than me in the same role, which, by the way, do it. If it's really what you want to do it. And definitely do not sort of let age be your decider here either. But recognize that, and I said that to people who even do the overseas go and get the master's, you know, somewhere else. And I'm like, oh boy, you're getting off the hamster wheel, because this thing kind of keeps moving, and other people are kind of gathering the experience under them while you're gone for 2 years. Then you've got to come back. And I've definitely hired people who, I was the beneficiary of people who kind of had to take that step back. And I got, like, you know, a master's level, incredibly, like, also just like the wisdom level and maturity was there, you know, even in an assistant, but, you know, but they also moved quickly. I mean, this is the thing that I want to make sure you understand too at times about, like, this industry. And that is how oftentimes they're like the ability to move up can, like, show up like that. And especially if you're a standout. And so if you are someone with a lot of experience who is taking that step back, not everybody is willing to hire that. I definitely am. And there are people out there who value it, because I understand the pain of transition and how hard it can be. There's just a reality that some people will have to take that step back in order to take those steps forward. And I will take the overqualified people any day on my team and bring them in. And that is, you know, literally, I have folks like that on my team now, and it's fine.
Well, and this gets to, and I do want to, I'm mindful again, we're tipping over our time here. I'm mindful of yours and everyone else's, so I want to wrap up here in a minute. But, you know, I do think there are a couple of people who have asked about whether it was the taking a more junior job or just even how do you break in. And I think that really focusing on your skills and not so much on your level or your, you know, your this many years or this age, you know, and your story about stuffing the envelopes at whatever hour of the night it was, you know, the people that I know, and there are people that I know, I always think about Mike Lynch as Chuck Schumer's chief of staff. And I remember him walking in to one campaign office and he just started sweeping. He picked up a broom and he just started sweeping because the floor, you know, there was a bunch of crap on the floor. And, you know, no one really thought about it. They had no idea that he was Chuck Schumer's chief of staff, right? Like, and he didn't care about it. And I love that about him. You know, and that kind of, that attitude, like if you have no airs about you, I don't care if you've got advanced degrees or you've done this, that, or the other thing, if you're willing to go in, whether it's canvassing or sweeping the floor, like just be the person who literally gets shit done, you know?
And you can do that before the job. So one of the folks who is most dear to me on my team right now, I hired her because every time I put out an all call for volunteers for GOTV for 2 years, she would just show up, you know, in her little car, drive up. It's 6 a.m. She's like a little shadow emerging, having driven from New Jersey to wherever I was, Virginia or to North Carolina. She would just raise her hand and she was just a shower upper. And that is a huge asset in our industry. People who show up get noticed. And when you show up with your sleeves all the way rolled up, a great attitude, and a certain passion for the whole thing, that does resonate with folks. It resonates with people who are putting together teams, because this job requires a lot of energy and a lot of commitment. And that those qualities, those things, like, people pick up on those from you. And so just recognizing everything about how you are entering into a space. For those of us who are talent hunters, which I definitely am, Amy always is, we are always looking constantly. Like, we won't even be able to help it. I'm going to be assessing the chat box, I'm here for those of you who have several exclamation points. Go ahead. I love it. Enthusiasm.
I asked you here, I knew that you would be, which is a slightly different point. It is where not everyone is like us in this world, right? Not everyone is that constant networker. We are extroverts, we are networkers, and we care about the people who do this work. Obviously, we care about the work that we do, but we care about the people as much as anything. And it certainly is what drives me, and I know it's what drives you. So you were an easy ask, because I knew you would make time, not because I asked, although I do like that you're responsive to me, but you knew what I was asking for, and that I know you want to answer every single question like I do, right?
We'd be here until 10. Yeah, that's right.
I know. No, we got to move along here. But I do really, really appreciate you taking the time. I know everyone here really, really appreciates you taking the time. I appreciate the job that you do. Again, I'm empathetic and sympathetic because I've done the job, and I know how hard a job it is. And I can't actually even imagine how hard it is right now, trying to do it all from home. So kudos to you. I'm actually surprised not a single person asked about the convention. That is sort of the one thing so I'm going to ask about it just as a wrap up, and maybe it's just more of a URL, but are there things people can do? What is the best way for people to engage? Whether it's for, just watching, or how do we be most helpful? Anything in the next couple of weeks? Anything that's a generic ask from everybody?
Asked. Yes. Of course there are. We're organizers. And what is convention? An organizing moment. That is what we are gathered to do, along with nominating our next, our standard bearer, our top of the ticket, Joe Biden, and whomever our fantastic vice presidential nominee will be as well. But we are also going to be using convention as an organizing moment. There are going to be opportunities to host house parties. There are viewing parties. Yes, this is going to be our, the convention across America that is also taking place in your living room, but or wherever in your home you may be. But it is really a time that we need this, right? We have got to have more folks who are getting very specific, getting your people locked in and saying, I am voting for Joe Biden because. And this convention, I hope, will help show people not just why not Trump, but why Joe Biden, why Democrats, why this party, and this party that has done a lot of soul searching, a presidential candidate who has done a lot of soul searching after a really rigorous primary, and who has taken so many of the best ideas from many of his running mates and folded those into a lot of the things that I love the most about the plans, including something that is beautiful and robust around our reopening and looking at the future of our economy and around inclusion and diversity and racial equity in all of our industries, and seeing an America in a new and visionary way that I think took, again, some of the best ideas that were out there during our big and exciting primary season. And so there will be lots of ways to tap in. For those of you who are not following, the Joe Biden campaign, they just launched this really nice looking new app. I love it. It is literally the best candidate page I have seen in a while, particularly presidential one. I love it. And there you will see a lot of the resources there for how to get engaged. The convention itself also is online. So you can look and find the Democratic National Convention, and they have launched their toolkit. So there are cute little things that you can post on social. You can change your photo, your profile photo, to say that you're going to be a part of the 2020 convention. Thank you for everyone who's helping with adding the links. I appreciate that. And so absolutely there will be ways for people to be engaged. And even if you don't lift a finger, just watch and listen and help become one of our better messengers when people ask your opinion.
Awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, like I said, we've totally run over, and we still haven't answered half the questions, which just shows the appetite and the eagerness for people who want to do this work. And so I'm really excited we actually got to do this. I am so thrilled that you agreed to do this with us so quickly. So thank you for that. To everybody else, we're going to do a few more of these. I have to tell you, I mean, we've done these in the past, but it was so obvious to me after doing the career counseling, the virtual career fairs, so many people came and asked questions. I was like, all right, we're just going to do these weekly. So stay tuned. We'll have some other amazing speakers, and maybe Muthoni or someone else from the DNC will come back again to later, you know, a couple weeks from now. Probably got to get you through the convention, but we need
I've got
everybody.
a big team
right?
too, so
Everybody, yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I mean, there's other folks, other departments, things like that. I mean, it's real clear. You know, the DNC feels like a mystery. It's not, but it's also really important for people to understand it, and it helps to expose it. And so that's.
And you know what I think is also good? So people like Teresa Sheldon, who is my Native American political director, is like newer to working in the party. And you know how I met Teresa? Literally, we were asked to come out there. This is when I was still at Emily's List. And one of the leaders, one of the tribal leaders, asked us to come out because he had this like realization that he was going to help more Native women run. And so he reached out to Emily's List. He told us to come and do a tour of the state. And so we went from the south of Washington state up to the north and met with tribes to talk about building this program. And when he needed to build this trip, of course, he turned to the women and they helped actually realize this great vision of his. And Teresa, there were two Teresas. And this Teresa, we sat next to each other at the dinner and that was at the Tulalip on their land. And it was instant. I said, I have to work with this woman. Like, not only was she the person who clearly pulled this together just like this, but that thing I was talking about when I say that some of us are constantly looking and talent hunting, it was on. And I was like, oh, she's going to be a part of this project. This, whatever this is that we're pulling together now, you're it, you're her, you're the Quan. And so we pulled her in. And then she ended up coming over with me to the party. And, you know, I think having someone like that who has not typically worked for the party, those voices are also really helpful in thinking about what it means to do this work. And, you know, I mean, she sort of just got recruited out of nowhere, but she's been active and engaged, and she's been around policy, but just not in this formal space before. So you want to talk about a career switch, and she'd been an elected tribal councilwoman. So I had someone coming in who knew what it was like to run. So we're often looking for a variety of life experiences and skills. And you just sort of know when you can take that and do something with it and help like really fill some roles. And I want to like leave with that, Amy, because I do think I want people to know that not all of us have been doing this for over 2 decades. That is, despite my youthful appearance, how long I've been doing this, that there are folks that are still entering into this work for my later in your careers, for my switchers, who didn't even see this coming, and it just happened because she was just rolling up her sleeves, showing up with a great attitude when she was just asked to do a thing.
I love that. I love that story. And I do love the idea of people coming in and bringing all sorts of life experiences with them to diversify our work in so many other ways, you know? also just inspiration for me, and I say this because you know I'm always following up with you, all my crazy ideas, but it does make me think we will do more of these, so we should just think about ideas, because again, clearly there's appetite here, and we need all of you. We need all of you working on campaigns. We need all of you in the states. We need all of you supporting the party, certainly supporting Joe Biden, but supporting the Senate candidates, the House candidates, flipping these legislatures, helping the city councils. I mean,
yeah,
everything.
working
Like,
local, help work local. We need better folks coming. I mean, look, we in the time of Trump, and this will be the last thing I say at our 6:14 mark, but like in the time of Trump, who has been saving us? It has been our state and local electeds, our governors, our mayors. And then in the time of change, in a time where the movement has said, you need to do something now about Black lives, where were they able to start making progress? At the local level. So there is something so accessible about power and change that is in our states that we overlook. And I implore you to think about, as you are looking at where to take your amazing skill sets, to start looking locally around you. And there's so many easy ways. I mean, Congresswoman Lisa Blunt Rochester, you know, she first got her job and got noticed by her congressman. She went to, you know, a local meeting that he had, and she just asked a lot of damn questions, and he really liked her curiosity. And he was like, I need you to come and work for me. So there are a lot of ways for you to be seen, but you got to go there and start being intentional about that. Do not overlook your opportunities right in the state where you live.
Great advice. Obviously, people are so happy to hear from you. I'm always just happy to have an excuse to talk to you pretty much anytime. So I appreciate this. Like I said, this has been a lot of fun, and we'll definitely do more. Thanks to everyone else. I know we didn't get to all the questions. I promise you that we will do more of these. I appreciate all of you jumping on Gain Power. It's a brand new platform. It's a brand new, really, vision for engaging people to do this work. It's certainly still a job board. It's absolutely based on engaging people doing this work professionally, but it's also back to the networking. It's all about relationships. And great, I would love to know all of you, and you should all know Muthoni, but you should also know each other. And that's really the goal, is like, we want to be a platform for building relationships, and particularly in this pandemic moment where we can't network in person. It's breaking my heart that we're not going to be in person at the convention. It's one of my all-time favorite events. I've missed so much. We've all missed our personal interactions. But we built this platform for people to meet each other, to network, to form groups, to talk, to share in a very dedicated space for the people who care about these issues. So I appreciate everyone.
Amy, did I just hear that you're going to be hosting convention watch parties on Gain?
We can. We're going to talk about that. I have so many ideas. I know. I just like, we're on that, right? Absolutely. Hey. Absolutely. Yes. Cool. Yeah. No, everyone wants to engage here. So and I'm constantly getting questions about what can we do? How do we get involved? So turns out I've got a few friends and work in the places that have the answers. So thank you. Thank you. I love you.
Goodbye, everybody. Good night. And thank you for
everyone else for being here.
Yeah.
I can't believe we're running this late and everyone's so many still holding on. So we are going to wrap it up, though, for those who really have other things to do. Thank you. And we'll see you all soon.
Bye.
Bye.